Namaste. My name is Jerry. You can call me Flat Earth Jerry or Phrakshun. For my new show I'm making, A Fraction of Truth. This is the first installment, and I just wanted to say my story about how I got to be here and a little bit about the content I'll be making. So, real quick, born in Mexico, Sinaloa. Went out of there when I was 2 years old. My parents were doing a lot of traveling. Evidently, I visited a lot of exotic places. I don't have any memory of these, but apparently I've been to places like the Caribbean, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, St. Thomas, and Puerto Rico. Eventually, it came time for school. So we decided Canada would be the best place for that. By we, I mean my parents. And so I went to kindergarten in Ottawa for 3 months, and then we moved to Calgary, where I went for another 6 months. And then we moved back to Toronto, where I went for grade 1 through 5. So that was pretty normal stuff growing up. I was pretty shy, had a hard time making friends. English wasn't my first language. And first couple friends I made in Toronto didn't set the greatest examples. One of these times I had a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like my whole deck, 2/3 of the deck stolen. And when I confronted those who I thought did it, we were playing a duel, we were dueling, and I saw one of my cards came up, and I confronted him about it, and two friends kind of ganged up against me saying, no way, we just got these like the other day, kid stuff. They did it. And another friend came over, and my Game Boy was missing, so I confronted him about it, and then he asked if the reason why I thought he took the Game Boy was because of his skin color. No, it's because you came over, the Game Boy was there, you left, and the Game Boy was gone. Alright, so then for grade 6, we moved to where I live currently, which is Minden Hills. I remember, walking in through those classroom doors the first day, and a gentleman stands up and he goes, "I'll be your friend." And I was like so impressed by that. I was like, when does that actually happen? Is this real life? So that was pretty normal stuff, friendships, relationships, nothing too crazy until grade 8, which is when they decided, started to plan for the future. Applied is like college bound, academic is university bound. So because I was getting low 80s, and the teachers recommended unless you were getting high 90s, you shouldn't take academic. So because I was having those low 80s, mid to low 80s, I decided I'd just take applied, and there I went. Music and gym, elementary was great. Went to high school, I swapped out music for drama. Still stuck with gym, personal fitness. Courses were, pretty normal stuff. The optionals were physics and chemistry. I didn't take biology because of the coloring. The coloring actually was a huge turnoff. I didn't want to, draw all those little cells, and I get how it helps with memorization and all the definitions and the labels and all that, but it was just not my thing. So still interested in physics and chemistry though. So did some sports, football in the first 2 years, 9 and 10, rugby grade 12. Hyperextended my ankle the very first game. Still hurts a little bit to this day, but that was fun. My time out of high school was spent primarily on video games. So specifically first-person shooters, shooters in general, role-playing games, strategy games, real-time strategy games, and occasionally I still do the bit of old-school gaming here and there, just the distractions that are still real. But when I wasn't gaming and I wasn't learning, I was socializing, right? And socializing in high school is basically trying to validate yourself and fit in. And the best way to do that in high school? By binge drinking and smoking. You get in with all the cool kids. So, yeah, and earnestly, it's a slippery slope. So, the questions I had were, I had the warnings, I knew it wasn't good, but why didn't I heed the warnings? What is it about personal experience that makes it so powerful? So those patterns kind of continued for 4 years until it came time to go to college, at which point I waited for a year for my girlfriend to graduate so we could go together. I took a 3-year network and information security course, or basically ethical hacking, and I dropped out after the first year. Basically, I had concluded that security was a lie. And I mean that in the sense that unless you're not connected to the internet, you can take steps, you can apply technique, you can undergo processes, you can apply fail-safes, but if you're connected, you're vulnerable. And even if you're not connected, someone can still come by and cause physical harm to your system, right? So after college, things start to get interesting. I started dating a new girl, and things start to get interesting, and my relationship that spawned for about 4 years ended, and I accept my reasons for that. There's as many subjective reasons for that as anyone can kind of create. I accept my responsibility for those actions. So I started dating this new girl, and I kind of realized it was a little too soon. I wasn't over my ex, and I got a really good taste of my own egoic medicine. She really reflected a lot of myself back at me, and even made me believe that I could be depressed. So I pursued the treatment. I was diagnosed with moderate to moderately severe depression, and sequentially placed on medication. I was given 2 scripts. One was take 1 pill once a day, and the other one was take 1 pill up to 4 times a day, 6 hours apart. And I will always remember this day very vividly. And I remember walking in the office, and they're like, how are you, how's your prescription, blah, 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 and I have these bottles, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and he goes, what? What do you mean? And I go, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. He goes, no, that's wrong, that's not what I gave you. I go, pardon me? And, he takes the bottles, and I show him, and it turned out I was overdosed. The second script was supposed to be another once-a-day pill. Okay. Yeah, so to recap, I was overdosed, and I remember calmly, saying, thanking them, and saying, thanks for your time, I need to go. And I walked out of the office, and I didn't come back. That year, on Halloween night, with the same girlfriend, I was picking her up, but on the way together, a family of raccoons had reminded me of the circumstances I was in. And basically that was when I applied significant pressure on the brake, my vehicle would fishtail. This was because I needed a rear drum brake alignment. So I pick her up, and I needlessly and recklessly had to show her what had happened. And after correctly adjusting 2 out of 3 fishtails, a hydroplane, I lose control of the vehicle, and I end up in the opposite lane's ditch, upside down. So we black out. I wake up. I notice I'm upside down. I undo my seatbelt. It gets pretty blurry here, but I'm pretty sure I undid the seatbelt. I got down, tried to open the door, the driver's side door, it's jammed. Tried to crawl in the back. It was also jammed. At that time, my girlfriend, wakes up. She's like, Jerry, I can't see. I undo her belt. Smoke's starting to fill the car. She drops down. I go back to try to get this door open. I think I tried to start to kick the window down. I'm not having very much luck, and then I finally try the other door, the passenger side back door, and it opens up, and I go, okay, here you go, like this way. She's trying to find her phone. I find her phone for her right in the middle of the, upside down the roof of the car. Hand her the phone. She's off. I'm off. We're walking out with cuts and bruises after that accident. I have pictures I could show. So I remember getting out of that accident, standing there and being like, I think this is the sign that the universe is saying we shouldn't be together. And most people would think, well, you just survived a car accident. Why don't you feel like you should be together? And that's a very valid question, and that's the exact same frame of mind that the girlfriend at the time had, and she was extremely upset that I'd said that. And we ended up going to the hospital. We were fine, cuts and bruises. We ended up seeing each other the next day, but it didn't last much longer. That was Halloween night, right? And so I uploaded my first telekinesis video that year, December 29th. So my spiritual journey kicked off. And it kicked off in a way, and it kicked off like a hydra, like multiple points at once. I came across several YouTubers, including information, esoteric material from meditation, to lucid dreaming techniques, to information about the aura and consciousness and psychokinetic abilities, energy, martial arts like Qigong and Tai Chi, and eventually made my way into the conspiracy rabbit hole system. I learned about coincidences and how with a proper perspective one can see them as synchronicities. No longer are seemingly random coincidental moments discarded as irrelevant. It's a sign for you to notice. Deja vu started providing more insight. I started learning about divination techniques such as astrology, tarot cards, pendulum readings, and the clerics, which are the clairvoyance, the clairseeing, clairsentience is clear feeling, clairaudience is clear hearing, and claircognizance is clear knowing. I began to learn about sacred geometry, the phi ratio, the golden mean, ancient religions and civilizations, specifically their advanced technology. I learned of Reiki and energy healing, and trained in 4 out of 6 courses there. The last 2 being how to implement businesses around the idea. After soaking in what I felt was enough information, I concluded that I learned what the real world was. I woke up. I woke up from the Matrix, and it was time to train. So I found company, and this company of mine, we were going on our own spiritual journey. We thought that we were going to walk from Minden to Florida, and we were going to change the world along the way. We get as far as Peterborough before circumstances came up where I decided I was going to stop, and I canceled that trip after that. Shortly after, following still the breadcrumbs of synchronicities and the signs along the way, one of my closest friends who introduced some of the energy martial arts to me and some of the sacred geometry asked if I wanted to go to Montreal and visit one of our mutual friends. So of course I enthusiastically agreed. We talked about everything we could along the way. Highlights, I remember being at the top of this hill and looking down at 4 lanes of traffic on this hill and then another intersection with more lanes and then just going, how much money are we looking at right now? Like, what is the value of what we're seeing right now? And the numbers start becoming astronomical quite quickly. We arrive in Montreal, and very quickly I meet a woman whose interests and mine were mutual. She described me as one of the most balanced people she's ever met. This woman taught me so much about myself, and I had one of the best times of my life. I was there for less than a week, and I allowed myself to fall in love with her despite knowing the time restraint. And in retrospect, my friends felt like I had ditched them, and at the time I justified my actions. I created reasons to justify them, and I still haven't talked to her since. This woman provided me contact with one of her best friends back in Toronto. I'm back home for a short period of time when, out of the blue, another one of my closest friends, who I used to game with a lot, messaged me, in which I considered uncharacteristic and another synchronicity considering he lived in Toronto at the time. I bus there, and I visit for about 3 days. I meet the woman's best friend from Montreal, right? And we have coffee and ice cream the first night there, and it was a wonderful time. We shared information back and forth. For the first 2 days, I keep passing the psychic shop, and every single time I was closed, went upstairs, and that was locked, no answer, I couldn't get in there. But, and I'm like, where's, this is all great, but where's, psychic stuff? Where's the spiritual stuff? And out of the corner of my eye, on the last day, I'm running to catch the bus. I got a few minutes to spare, but out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a self-proclaimed gypsy. And this gypsy's got a crystal ball out, he's got some bones out, he's got tarot cards out, So I pull out my wallet and I hand him the last 2 bills I have, and he does a palm reading for me, and flips a couple tarot cards for me. I got a bit of a time restraint. I'm like, what can you say, man? And so he says, I'm gonna meet my soulmate in British Columbia, but I should beef up a little bit first, cause So that was funny. And I'll get into psychics and my opinions on them later, but this man passed my tests with flying colors. Like, I didn't give him anything personal, and he very, very quickly deduced me. Alright, so basically I had found my soul, and I started to nurture it in the best way I could. But it was time to come back to reality. I found several jobs and pastimes, that went from helping around the community to wireless tech support for Rogers at home to fast food for a year, all the while trying to practicing my disciplines. I failed. I found myself entering an ego-satisfying relationship and had the pleasure of someone taking interest in my knowledge. That was a power struggle of which I wish upon no one. Though I learned a lot, the damage had been done. I succumbed back to my addictive tendencies and stopped at stopped almost all my disciplines except for aerokinesis, which was taught from Michael Grubb of Evolved Ministry. Now, it reminds me that there's more to this life. There's more to this life than your normal job, your day to day. It was my connection to the other side. Fast forward a little bit, and I'm finding myself overwhelmed by negativity. Negativity in my environment, negativity in myself. All I could see was darkness. My negative actions continued, and I eventually ended up losing myself. I was confused about who I was, who my parents were. The information in my head became scrambled. I lost my mind. I began to experience anxiety attacks for the first time, the like of which I've never, ever experienced. And thoughts began, thoughts and scenes began to trigger me deeply, again, also new. And these triggers had me totally under their influence. I was under their control. I decided I was tired of scaring loved ones around me, scaring myself, and I asked my parents to check me into a mental ward. Synchronistically, I was placed in the exact same room of the exact same hospital of a friend that was there prior. And I will never forget the comfort he provided to me over the phone, describing my surroundings to a T. I meet several others with similar situations there, and get a first-hand experience of the disgusting behavior some mental health workers, treat the diagnosed mentally ill. I make a few friends and found myself experiencing an instant connection with one of the friends I'd made. So now I'm given a magic pill that fixes all my problems once a day until they up the dose, and I'm there in the ward for 2 weeks. The pill had an effect. It increased my cognitive functions quite rapidly, but my emotions were dulled, were very, very dulled. I was very tired, and they said that would go away, like after 6 months or a year. Who knows? You have to play with the chemicals, right? But realistically, I just felt like a zombie. I play their game long enough to acknowledge that I can be considered for release, considered to go back into the public. I convinced them to release me 2 weeks earlier than they would have liked. The girl I gained feelings for stayed 1 week longer than I did. Back on the outside and still on the meds, I'm slowly beginning my life again. My Reiki master, one of my trusted sources of practical and spiritual information, and a good friend of mine, educated me about the dangers of these mental medications, and helped me to fill in the blanks that I had already kind of deduced from my own experience, right? I knew they weren't good, but I certainly didn't know how bad they were. I decided to stay away from spiritual stuff for the time being until I felt ready. Against the psychiatrist's orders, I stopped taking the pill pretty much cold turkey. There was a little bit of weaning, but not much. I was becoming myself again. Better than ever. Improved. Music and love became my medicine. Life became my joy. And I'll provide a warning on that one because we remember what we're actually experiencing. More to come on that. From there, I learned of the flat earth and become absorbed into the concept, but just long enough to learn what I had to. So I've got a few points here to get it out of the way. So number one, what is flat earth to me? The flat earth theory is the true shape of the ground we walk on. The model I currently subscribe to consists of the South Pole, or Antarctica, not being at the bottom of a gravity-induced oblate spheroid, but rather encircling what we know, as the world, with the North Pole actually in the center. The poles are not located in or on terra firma, but rather the sun and the moons. Yeah, the poles aren't on or in terra firma, but it's the sun and the moons that are the poles of the Earth, and they're not in orbit. They're locked. They're quantum locked. They're experiencing quantum levitation. So what does it mean? The scientific revolution has a vexing and beginning and end. It's most commonly agreed upon that it began with Nicholas Copernicus, 1473 to 1543, and his De Revolutionibus, and continued to Isaac Newton, 1642 to 1727. Their work is responsible for the church-pushed heliocentric model and the false theory of gravity. So, if you're in this far, say, sure, why not? Why? Why is it important? It's important to know history, because otherwise it's going to be repeated. The flat earth theory in history, once proven true, will have huge ramifications. The Bible is a product of man, conceptualized through communication with the highest intelligence, but a product of man nonetheless. This does not make it a child's story, nor a scientific textbook. The magic of the Bible lies within the reader's ability to discern truth. God, heaven, and hell are the sound vibrations created for the biggest deception ever. It is the gears and the pulleys of a system. And the system has a very specific purpose, and it's containment. And if so, if you're this far, why not, right? What's it mean? What you got? Well, number one, you need to accept that you've been lied to. By who? Why? What do we do about it? Good questions. I could, and I will answer these questions later. The information is already widely available and becoming only more widespread. I have provided my personal experience, which led me to believe these thoughts and suggestions. So, we live through example. We live through action. We do not have to be competitive and bloodthirsty, but we can be. We do not have to be compassionate and dedicated, but we can be. And if you're asking what you should dedicate yourself to, yourself, unconditional love, how about your loved ones? How about this world? That's a good cause. For fun, and one of the things I'll be doing on my channel is reverse engineering words, so let's just do unconditional love. So, prefix un is the opposite of, no, on, not, no. Conditional is a set of attributes one chooses to accept or decline. And, one is, like a unit. It's the life unit. It's alive, it's conscious, it's intelligent, and it thinks. So what are thoughts? Thoughts are just electrical signals communicated by the brain. Does this make the brain conscious? Sentient? What else would fit those parameters? How about the heart? How about the stomach? Each individual cell is intelligent. What makes these cells up? They are coded to exist via DNA. What is DNA? Strings of nucleotides, which consist of nucleic acids, and proteins, consisting of amino acids. What are these made of? Atoms. What are atoms made of? Quantum particles. And those? Well, personally, I subscribe to string theory. And my oh my are strings being picked and played. No matter how you look at it, no matter where you look at it, we are in the middle of the center of this reality. Depending on the information and the channels you subscribe to, projects the reality you see. If your world is one that consists of natural laws, which are defined by only that which can be measured with our physical senses or instruments, how much of reality are you actually observing, believing, and living in? The reason people tend to feel so lost and out of control is because we've been taught that we are at the mercy of our thoughts and emotions. What we think is what we are. It's truth hidden in half-truth. I've experienced and demonstrated both halves of this reality. The purpose of my life is to master myself. Most people get to around 10 or 20% of themselves mastered. I'm going to go for 100. This is ambitious and surreal, but I can think of no two better words to describe myself. Perhaps wishful too. I aim to accomplish my goals via the tools I've been provided, and self-mastery on the platform of Evolved Ministry can certainly do that. You know, it's the closest to true education I found. So I present a choice. And this choice will act, if you let it, like a splinter in your mind, until you choose what to do with it. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to master yourself. Set a goal. Accomplish it. Should you choose not to accept, you go back to reality. You go back to the same old, same old. Nothing changes, except what you want to work towards. So, realistic reality is idealistic reality. And this concludes episode 1 of A Fraction of Truth.